This is KGW News at noon.
Sky 8 is flying over breaking news in Camas. At least one person died in a crash between a train and a car. Another person was taken to the hospital. This happened just after 10:30 this morning near Southwest 5th and Viola. KGW's Chris Willis is live at the scene in Camas today. Chris.
Yeah, that location you just described is very crucial in this story. We can show it to you because Southwest Viola, and we're at 6. It was down at 8. See the PVT on Viola? That's a private drive, and what that means is we come back here, Rod, right down this street is where the accident happened, and the private means there weren't any crossing guards, crossing arms coming down as we show you Sky 8 right now. This is an Amtrak train and a collision with the vehicle, and as you mentioned, one person is dead, and you're getting a look at, they're still cleaning up the scene right now, and that small blue car was hit by the train and we believe tossed quite a few feet. And again, with no arms coming down to warn drivers of that crossing, it is basically a look both ways before you cross it. Officer Rydell from the Camas Police Department joining us right now, and that's what this was about, an Amtrak train with passengers on it, right?
Yep, 10:30 this morning, an Amtrak train with 75 passengers going westbound collided with a vehicle crossing over the tracks without stopping or looking, with 2 passengers.
And it appears that once that impact was made, the car was thrown, right?
Yes.
And the damage to the train now is also important because this, I believe, originated in Chicago and is heading to Vancouver. It's going to continue? Is that what we think?
We believe that they're checking on the damage now to see if it can continue on their way with maybe a new crew, and then they can get on, and then we can get on with our scene.
Yeah, still a lot of work to do. Officer, we know you're busy, so thank you very much. That is the situation right now. We have one fatality. The person that was taken to the hospital, we believe is a teenager, was the passenger in that small blue car. And just to give you another perspective of this, you know, they have those brush guards on the front of the trains, and I think that was the impact that tossed the car off the tracks after the impact was made. And because that thing absorbed a lot of the damage, this train is going to be able to continue. Again, we showed you some of that train still being assessed by emergency crews, passengers, 75 of them on the train being talked to, and they might even bring a new crew in to continue that train once it keeps going because of the trauma of the crew that was on the train when the impact happened. So that's the situation right now in Camas. And we'll have more this afternoon at 4, 5, and 6. Brenda?
Terrible situation. Chris Willis there live in Camas. Thank you. And certainly we will bring you any updates throughout the day on KGW's mobile app and our website, kgw.com.
The premise of that article is false, that in any way the president had a conversation that was inappropriate or that resulted in any kind of lapse in national security.
You hear it there, the White House on the defensive today. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster denies a Washington Post report that President Trump shared classified information with Russian officials. NBC's Jennifer Johnson has more on that and how the president is responding on Twitter.
Another firestorm at the White House after President Trump reportedly shared highly classified information about a possible ISIS terror plot with Russian diplomats in the Oval Office last week. His national security advisor on damage control.
The president in no way compromised any sources or methods in the course of this conversation. The president wasn't even aware, of where this information came from.
The president tweeted he has the absolute right to disclose facts about terrorism with the Russians, later adding this.
Well, we had a very, very successful meeting with the foreign minister of Russia. Our fight is against ISIS.
But the Washington Post is reporting the information was so sensitive it was not to be shared even with U.S. allies.
It was bragging about, I get the best intel, I have these amazing, great briefings every day. You wouldn't believe the stuff I hear.
The U.S. media was barred from that meeting. One of the diplomats there is a central figure in the Russia election hacking investigation. Lawmakers say releasing the information about ISIS using laptops to smuggle explosives onto planes could jeopardize sources' lives.
Totally outrageous. If it was unwitting, that would be pathetic and dangerous. If it was intentional, that would even be, I don't know what's worse.
Some Democrats want transcripts of the meeting released to intelligence committees. Even Republican leaders are expressing frustration.
I think we could do with a little less drama from the White House on a lot of things.
Lawmakers point out that what the president allegedly did was not illegal, just careless. The Post is also reporting that senior White House officials quickly tried to contain the fallout, calling the CIA and the National Security Agency about what allegedly happened. Jennifer Johnson, NBC News, Washington.
Researchers are working to figure out who's behind the massive cyber attack that took more than 300 computers hostage in more than 100 countries. They say there may be a link to North Korea. The computer code has some similarities to a group called Lazarus. It has suspected ties to North Korea's government and is linked to hacks on Sony Pictures, the Central Bank of Bangladesh, and Polish banks. But it could be weeks or even months to confirm that. Meanwhile, organizations are trying to figure out if they lost any data in this latest attack. Okay, I want to give you a live look from our Rose City Skycam. I think that's an improving view. It's not just totally gray. We're seeing some breaks in the clouds. But Raj, you are talking about showers and thunderstorms this afternoon.
And we have hail and we have thunderstorms on the radar. And we also have, even in the sunny spots, crazy chilly temperatures this time of the year. Here's up north of Mount St. Helens, pretty good cluster of lightning, so some good thunderstorms going on up there. Again, the purple color is snow, including some mountains out east and certainly up and down the Cascades. You know, Portland's had a little bit of a dry break where the showers up and down Portland and down I-5 to Salem haven't been that many number lately, but of course that could change. This shower up toward Salmon Creek in Clark County likely producing some small hail. So it is one of those rock and roll days with a mix of sun, heavy showers, thunderstorms, and we'll continue to see all those elements today. There's Cannon Beach, of course, Haystack Rock, only 50 degrees, and that's with a chilly northwest wind of 22 miles per hour. 54 degrees in Portland and a chilly west wind to go with that at 20 miles per hour. So we stay in the 50s today. At any given moment, your sunshine could turn into stormy skies, about 52 at 8 p.m. Check out this, Brenda. We'll talk more about Mount Hood coming up, but I will tell you, Timberline Lodge has 15 inches of new snow. By anybody's standard, that's a huge snowstorm for the month of May. More on that coming up and more on our changing weather that starts tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Rod. In about 3 hours, a man in Oregon City is going to court accused of killing his mom and stabbing a store clerk. This is one of the most graphic crimes that we've ever covered, so we do want to warn you, we're about to get into some of the details of this case. KGW's Tim Gordon is joining us live now from Oregon City. Tim, I know you're talking to people about how they can even start to process this trauma.
All right, Brendan, really how we can all cope with this type of a horrific story. So we'll have some insight in just a minute. But first, this is Joshua Webb's booking photo. He should appear before a judge here in just a few hours, charged with murder and attempted murder. Webb lived with his parents in their home in Colton. Police say that's where he killed his mother, 59-year-old Tina Webb, on Mother's Day. Then investigators say Webb drove into Estacada and walked into the Harvest Thriftway. Witnesses say Webb was covered in blood and carrying his mother's severed head. They say he was also carrying a knife that he used to repeatedly stab store clerk Michael Wagner. Wagner and two other employees subdued Webb until police arrived, and he was arrested. It is one of the most brutal acts of violence many of us can recall in recent memory. Imagine what that's like for those closest to it, including first responders.
I think our eyes see more than our souls are capable of bearing sometimes, because we see horrific stuff day in and day out, and we carry it with us all the time. And what we call that is cumulative stress.
We talked to a Clackamas County Sheriff's Lieutenant and the Sheriff's Office chaplain about the trauma and stress and how to cope with it with the help of others.
And if that's a faith community, be able to reach out to those pastors and people within your faith community to be able to find help. If it's also with a therapist, and it could even be just within your community that are around you with your friends and neighbors to be able to say why this feels like a spoon in the garbage disposal and I just can't make sense.
And talk about not being able to make sense of this. The suspect, Joshua's father, David Webb, spoke to the Associated Press last night, and he said this, quote, "I just can't believe I lost my wife and son in one day. I wish I had some answers, but I don't." Brenda, he said he'd waited his entire life to retire with his wife. and now he won't be able to do that. That is really something else and hard to handle, I'm sure. Back to you.
I can't even imagine. Tim, thank you. Also today, a family is asking a hit-and-run driver to do the right thing and surrender to police. Chuck Cade died Friday. He was a dad, he was a grandpa, he was a great-grandpa. Someone rear-ended his car on Easter near Southeast 122nd and Stark, sending his car into a utility pole. Now his daughter and his brother want whoever is responsible to come forward.
Whoever did this has now taken my father away, our father away. That really hangs really heavy over me. I think they should be held accountable for their actions.
Just be accountable. Say you're sorry, do the right thing, and man up.
Cade's wife was also in the crash. She's still recovering. Police are looking for a dark mid-2000s full-size SUV. Call police if you know anything. Well, this year, Travel Portland expects even more people to visit the Rose City. One of the most popular tourist spots is Voodoo Donuts here in downtown Portland. That's where KGW's Rachel Raffanelli joins us live. Rachel, right there off Burnside, you see a lot of tourists, but you also see a lot of homeless, and that's on the mayor's radar.
The mayor has said it's one of his top priorities. Now, Brenda, on a day like today, we have seen some tourists waiting for those pink boxes, and we've also seen some homeless folks out here. But when it's hot, you'll see a lot more of both. A Travel Portland spokesperson says when it comes to the homeless crisis and tourism, they look towards new Mayor Ted Wheeler and his administration. They want to see what solutions the mayor's office has as we head into the summer season, the busiest time for tourism. Travel Portland says they want tourists and locals to enjoy their time here, and says a big part of that has to do with good communication with the city.
I think if anything, we've really seen an uptick in local businesses reaching out and getting in touch with the city and being able to inform them of specific examples or things that maybe could be addressed a little bit differently as we have a new mayor in office and new staff there. And so we really are working hard to engage those people in the conversation so that we can really address the problems at hand and get after some of those issues.
This comes as Travel Portland has expanded ads in Minneapolis, San Francisco, and Phoenix, and they've created a new tagline for this year, "You Can in Portland." Now, to give you some perspective, about 9 million people visited the city last year, and Brenda, I'm told this year we should expect to see even more than that. Back to you.
Thanks, Rachel. Well, today is Election Day, and you have to drop off your ballot by 8 o'clock tonight. There are some big measures on the ballot this time around. One is a $790 million bond for Portland Public Schools. The money would go to renovating and rebuilding 4 schools and making upgrades to fix lead, asbestos, and radon problems. The money will come from an additional tax on homeowners. There's also a measure that, if it passes, would charge short-term rental companies a 6% tax. That would affect companies like Airbnb, VRBO, and HomeAway. You can find a complete article with what you need to know before you vote by going to kgw.com.